Another issue which is loathsome and very problematic, and it's what I was telling you about yesterday. Google and Verizon have come up with a deal where they're going to do 2 tiers for the internet. One is landlines, and they say, oh, we're going to have net neutrality for that. Another is wireless. Well, for that, then Verizon or the different carriers can decide to discriminate and pick winners and losers, make some websites faster, some slower, maybe even block access to some of them. That is, it's unbelievable, totally egregious. I have a lot of questions about that. Jason Rosenbaum is now going to join us from Progressive Change Campaign Committee. They've put together a website called GoogleDon'tBeEvil.com. Clever. Jason, welcome to the Young Turks.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we appreciate it. Now, first, why is Google making this deal? I mean, I get why Verizon wants to make more money by doing this, but what's Google saying?
You know, I think a lot of people are asking the same question, and we've seen a ton of outrage, at Google making this kind of deal because they're a company that's motto is "Don't be evil," and this deal is absolutely evil. I think there's a lot of ways to speculate about why they might have done something like this. I think the most prominent theory is that with their mobile operating system, Android, they're moving more into the mobile world, and that involves sucking up to carriers like Verizon and AT&T and Comcast. And this is one way that they can do that. They can come out and endorse a policy that people like Verizon have been promoting for years, and say, hey, we can be on your side. Why don't you cut us a little more business? I think that's one theory. I don't know exactly why, but I do know that we've seen hundreds of thousands of people really outraged about it because they really don't expect this from the likes of Google.
Yeah, and you know what? It's the problem with all corporations to some degree. Once they've started, they want to limit competition because why does Google want new competition online? They don't, right? So
absolutely.
Maybe it makes sense for them to say, hey, you know what? If I team up with Verizon and we get to decide who won't compete with us, maybe that's a good deal for Google.
There's no question that this would have the effect of limiting competition, especially in the content providing realm, which is what Google does. They provide search content, they provide video content with YouTube, and under these deals, and it's actually worse than you described at the beginning of the segment, they carve out this giant loophole on both wired and wireless internet for quote-unquote premium services. And those new networks that they'd be creating, they're different from the public internet. That's the term that they used when they announced this deal. The public internet would remain net neutral, but these new premium services, and when pressed, they had a hard time differentiating between what would be on the public internet and what might be on these new premium services. But these new premium services would be totally corporate controlled, and only the biggest companies that can afford to get on them, the Googles of the world, the Fox Newses of the world, would be on these premium services, and one can imagine that they would get the most investment and they would be the fastest because that's where Verizon and Comcast and AT&T, they can make their money.
So, Jason, basically they'd say, hey, all the rest of you, whatever it might be Daily Kos, it might be Newsbusters, it might not be a political site, it might be one of their competitors. You're all
Absolutely.
on the quote-unquote public internet. The rest of us have much faster websites that serve people a lot better, but that's because we're premium.
That's right.
That's basically
exactly right.
Okay, that's disastrous, okay?
Yep.
And of course, they get to make those decisions. Now, in that context, but that leads to the obvious next question. Why in the world do we care what Verizon and Google decided? It's as if we're having a conversation about what the House and the Senate decided in terms of regulation. Theoretically, shouldn't the government be doing regulation, not the corporations they're supposed to be regulating?
That's exactly right. So there was a Supreme Court decision a couple of months ago that stripped the FCC of its authority to regulate the Internet. And the FCC can correct that pretty egregious situation by coming out with some new rules. And they can correct it pretty quickly. They could start that process tomorrow if they wanted to. But so far, the chairman of the FCC, Julius Genachowski, an Obama appointee, someone who stood up and said he believes in net neutrality, has been sitting on his hands and has refused to assert the FCC's authority. And so in that power vacuum, you see companies like Google and Verizon stepping up and making these kinds of really evil deals.
Uh-oh, you sound like the professional left there, Jason, complaining about the Obama administration not living up to its campaign promises. How dare you? Don't you see how hard they're working for you, Jason? And if they wind up killing net neutrality, you should thank them.
Hey, if the Obama administration and Julius Genachowski stand up for net neutrality, I will be the first one to thank them.
All right. Now, I understand you guys are fighting back with this website, google.don'tbeevil.com. What are people? Is that a petition? What are people signing on that website?
That's right. So we've seen, we launched this petition with some partners, Free Press, Move On, Credo, Color of Change, and this got launched Thursday or Friday, and over the weekend we've seen 300,000 people. They've signed an open letter to Google telling them to cut this deal, back out of this deal, to not be evil. We did a first round of delivery of these letters to Google's headquarters in D.C. on Monday. We're going to continue bringing those messages to Google. But that's the way that folks can get involved. If they sign that open letter, we'll make sure to tell them about ways they can pressure the FCC, because we really feel that that's next.
So you're trying to pressure Google and the FCC, right? Because Google can back out of the deal, and if they do, then I guess the people in government will say, oh, our corporate overlords told us it's okay, so maybe we can oppose this.
Sure. I mean, we feel, the FCC is where the buck stops, and the only reason these deals are happening is because the FCC has refused to act. So we want the FCC to say what Google and Verizon have proposed is not acceptable, and we're going to stand up for the free and open internet as promised.
Hey, Jason, let me ask you the last question. It's just because of the Robert Gibbs story today about him attacking the so-called professional left, et cetera. And I touched on it there, but let's keep it real here. And we're talking to Jason Rosenbaum from the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. Look, if Obama doesn't nominate Elizabeth Warren, and he didn't do all that other stuff, whether it's the public option, which you guys lobbied for even before you joined the organization, and he didn't stop Too Big to Fail, et cetera. And then on top of all of that, he says, oh, yeah, I was just kidding about net neutrality. Is there anything, I mean, are people right to say, why would I bother voting for this guy?
I think there was a certain degree of promises and of, rhetoric and these kinds of things that made people vote for Obama, that made people volunteer for Obama, give Obama money in 2008. I mean, I was one of those people. I volunteered for him in Virginia. I worked for him, and I was real happy to see him get elected. And it's because when he was running for president, he campaigned on progressive issues, and he campaigned as a progressive fighter. And now that he's in the White House, a lot of times he's failed to fight for the things that he said he believed in. And so, that's what I'm about. That's what the Progressive Change Campaign Committee is about, that we want, to make sure Obama is held accountable to what he said he would do.
And look, I bring it up in this context, not just because of the news today, but because I think net neutrality is one of those core issues. Because there's no excuse. There's the other side of the equation of, well, on the other hand, we'd like Verizon and AT&T to make more money. That's not a policy issue. That's not an excuse. That's ridiculous. I mean, it's absurd. And for him to back down from such an obvious no-brainer and something that was a core, a central promise of his, am I right in that? Or am I blowing up this net neutrality thing too much?
No, you're right. Obama was more clear about his promise on net neutrality than almost any of the other issues. I mean, if you listen real closely and parse, you can see, maybe he left himself a little wiggle room on health care, a little wiggle room on financial reform, but he was very clear about net neutrality. And so was Julius Genachowski when he was nominated and confirmed. And so I think it's absolutely a core issue. It touches on the greatest communications medium that we've seen in a generation. It's the future of this country. It's a huge economic engine of this country. Just think about how much of business goes on online these days. And it's really something that the Obama administration made a name for themselves on, and it's really something that they need to follow through on because it is crucial.
And my final thought on it is this. Look, it would be a craven collapse to corporate interests to say, okay, you're right, forget the power of the internet, I give in, corporations, you do whatever you like, and then what? Then there was no change. There was no change. It was all a lie, right? But more important than that, Jason, I guess the reason I keep going back to this issue and why you guys are fighting so hard on it is because the internet is the last bastion. Because TV is already so infected by the corporate virus, right? They are worried about access to the politicians. They're worried about their corporate sponsors. They're worried about X, Y, Z. The internet is the last bastion for communication. If they infect that, and then they can effectively, censor it, slow it down, ban, different websites they don't like, etc. Aren't we lost? I mean, how the hell would we get our message out otherwise?
That's absolutely right. Senator Franken put it absolutely correctly at Netroots Nation when he went and made a speech about net neutrality. This is the free speech issue of our time. This is the one of the few places left in this country where anybody who has a good idea or has a worthy opinion can express it in a way that's going to reach hundreds of thousands or millions of his or her fellow Americans. And if we lose that, we really, really take a cut at free speech.
All right. So everybody, if you care about this, and I think this is a monumentally important issue, check out their website that the Progressive Change Campaign Committee has put together. Google don'tbeevil.com. It's very clever, too. Jason Rosenbaum, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
All right. We'll be right back.